Hello, Hornet drivers. I'm embarrassed to say that I've just found out about this, but I want to share it with you guys. I used to just use track IR like this to hit buttons, and it was a little clunky, but there's actually a function in the game that gives you this little slick interaction cursor. So you just look somewhere, and then I can put this cursor using my mouse wherever I want, and it's just so much easier to use. So to find that, go in Options, Game, Configure Add-ons, FA-18, and then interaction cursor. Make sure that's boxed. If you do that, then you'll have that, and man, it makes it just a million times easier. So just wanted to share that. Enjoy the video. Thanks. Good afternoon, Hornet drivers. Welcome back to the cockpit. Today we're going to take a look at the Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared Pod, or the ATFLIR pod. This can also be referenced in slang, I believe, as an ATFLIR or a FLIR pod or just a T-pod, but the correct designation is going to be the AT-FLIR pod. This powerful pylon-mounted targeting pod provides a high level of tactical recon, observation, and pure data, as well as integrates with the weapon systems to create a really deadly mix of recon and just brute force strength. There are some some keybinds that are advantageous to use. So let's take a look at those quickly. Go into Options, Controls, um, and Configure Add-ons. Choose the FA-18-Super-Hornet. You're going to make sure, as always, you want to have sensor control switch bound, weapon release, obviously. And these are important. TDC, or throttle designation controller, up, down, left, right, and depress. You want all those bound. Pursuant just to the T-pod, I highly recommend binding undesignate button, raid field of view button, increase FLIR zoom, decrease FLIR zoom. Okay, those are all important for the T-pod. Now, a note about how these binds work. For me, my Thrustmaster does not, for whatever reason, like me to bind it straight to the stick. So I have to use what I call a two-stage bind, where in the Super Hornet, I bind these to an action, and then under custom controls, this is where you can find use those actions. So for instance, I had, let me see, I had use action 14, I think, yeah, is bound to my undesignate. So here I bind the actual button on my HOTAS. Here it's HOTAS button stick 3. I bind that to use action 14. And then again, if you look in the under the Super Hornet, use action 14 is undesignate button. So for whatever reason with the Thrustmaster, I need to dual bind in that fashion. You might as well, or your stick might work out of the box. I'm not sure. All right, now that we have our binds set up, we're going to open up our FLIR pod. You can do that from your TAC menu right here. This upper left OSB is FLIR. Click that. That brings our FLIR up. Currently, or when you first power it up, it's going to be in the stowed mode for travel. That's got the lens kind of spun up and put away in the stowed mode, and we'll bring that to life here in just a moment. All right, let's bring the pod to life. First, make sure that your T-pod is soy, indicated by the triangle there, and then simply slew the TDC. I'm going to slew it down here, and we'll talk about symbology that's on the screen. Starting here, the center OSB says TV. That tells us what mode the pod is in. It's currently in TV mode. You can push this OSB and switch it to infrared mode. And then when it's in infrared mode, you can use this OSB down here to switch between black hot and white hot modes. All right, we'll switch back to TV. Directly below that is 26 degrees. This tells you where the pod is looking in relation to the nose of the aircraft. So it's currently 26 degrees off to the right. If I slew it more off to the right, there it's 92 degrees to the right. That's basically right there, that away. 92 degrees to the right, and then right here, this negative 79 tells you the azimuth. It's looking down 79 degrees. If I raise it up a little bit, now it's looking up 40, up 26, negative 4, 20. Now it's looking up. So that gives you indication of where the pod is looking as far as angle and azimuth. Over here, trigger. In the jet, you can use this OSB to box the trigger button. And what that does is if your laser is armed down here, um, and you box trigger, when you pull your trigger to the second stage, it will manually fire your laser. You would do that if you were buddy lasing or providing a laser, maybe you were a FAC-A or something, but if you wanted to fire your laser manually. Now, it's not properly modeled in ARMA, but it does work. If you just click this OSB and your laser is armed, the laser will just start firing until you unbox or unclick it, okay? That's trigger. Right here is VVSLV, that's velocity vector slave. We'll come back to that later. Right here is UFC, and then directly adjacent to the UFC is your laser spot track code and your LTDR, laser target designator ranging code. Currently, they're both set to 1111. You can use UFC to change those codes. Click UFC over here, punch in a new code for laser. Whoop, that was one too many there. Gotta be careful. Punch in a new code for the laser designator, 2222. Boom. And we'll say 3333 for the laser spot track. Now those are both set there, and you can see they're set there. LTDR, the laser designator ranger, is your onboard laser that you'll use most often for self-designation. Laser spot track, you can search for a laser. So if another aircraft was providing a laser, if there was a FAC on the ground providing a laser, etc. You know the general area of the laser, you slew your targeting pod to that area, and then this OSB down here, LST, laser spot track, you click that, it'll begin searching for a laser that has the code that you've input there. So in this case, if I was to slew my pod, let's say there's a JTAC, I don't know, way over here in the mountains. I slew my pod over there. I click LST. It's going to start looking for a laser with the code tree. All right. Setup is not modeled. Declutter is not modeled. Apologies for that. Right here, 4250. That's our current altitude, so you can stay heads down. Let me see. Laser spot track we discussed. Right here is our current speed, 211 knots, and our Mach, 0.33. Right here is focus, not modeled. Right here is the zoom level. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Right here is OPR, meaning that the pod is currently operating. Right here, this northing with the arrow, it's not functioning in ARMA, but it might at a later time, and if so, that will point north relation to where the targeting pod is looking. So if we were looking way over here, and north was to our left, that N would be kind of spun around the left, and it would always point north, so you can kind of describe reference to other people.
Quick update just showing that the northing arrow is now working. You see as I slew my T-pod around there, that northing arrow changes position, and that arrow will always point north in relation to the T-pod. That's important. It's in relation to where the T-pod is looking and not where the airplane is pointed. So there's the northern arrow working. I see some bad guys right here, and I know that there's friendlies over here. I can tell them, hey, friendlies, you got bad guys 200 meters east of your position. So the northern arrow is working perfectly. And I just wanted to also point out that the moving map here works as well in both SA page and the HSI page, but it only works on the multi-purpose color display down here. Okay, enjoy the rest of the video, guys.
All right, so there are 3 levels of field of view. You use this OSB to switch between them. Right now we're in W field of view or wide field of view. You can click it again to go into medium field of view. You can click it one more time to go into the narrow field of view. You click it again to go back out to wide. Now wide has no zoom levels. If you go into medium field of view, you can now use this OSB to zoom in or to zoom back out in medium. If you go to narrow field of view, you can again zoom in one level or out one level. The zoom level is notated right here. We're zoom 1 and zoom 2. Now you can also just keep clicking to zoom all the way back out to wide, or keep clicking to zoom all the way back into narrow. If we're all the way in at narrow and you want to go back to wide, just click that and you're back out at wide. Now, the reason that I said it's advantageous to bind your keys is now I'm using my TDC to move around and my keybinds, and I can zoom all the way in and all the way back out. Okay. Final bit of symbology on the HUD. You've got your pitch ladder and your velocity vector here that just shows you what the aircraft is doing right now. And I think that does it for out of the box symbology. Now let's lock something up and take a look at how that changes. Symbology, we're going to go, just go down here to this city. Now I'm going to click TDC depress. That locks us in scene mode. Well, scene mode is basically just a ground stabilized mode where it's not locked on anything in particular, just where you click the button. You can move it around here, and when you move it, the brackets will disappear from the box and the center dot will disappear. But eventually, wherever you stop, it will keep that place locked. So let's say I wanted to observe, I don't know, this farmhouse down here. So that's now in scene mode. We've got some additional symbology here now. Right here, it tells us the elevation as well as the grid ref of the target that we're currently looking at. At a later date, this may also show latitude and longitude, but as of now, it does not. Over here, tells us the distance to what we are looking at. So it's 0.09 to the target. Right here, it's telling us it's in scene mode. And that is it for additional symbology. Now I'm only in medium field of view now, so I can take it all the way down to narrow. Now we can see what we're looking at. This line right here that says 15 meters, now 16 meters, that's a measure line. So I can take that, and depending on how far away you are, right there, I can kind of put it on the side of that building and see that line at 20 meters is about half the length of that building. So I could ascertain that building is about 40 meters long if I wanted to describe something to maybe some troops on the ground, or let's say there were troops at that building that were in contact. As you zoom out, that line gets longer and longer. If I zoom out here to my FLIR and I can see, you know, way over here are the bad guys shooting at them, I can put this measure line back on the target area where my guys are. I can see, okay, it's about 200 meters to that road and then another 200 meters to that building. I can say, hey, you know, Bandit 1, this is Eagle 1, you've got a threat bearing east 400 meters in the farmhouse with 2 trees or near the orchard, etc. That's how that measure line works. And to undesignate from scene mode, just click undesignate. You'll go to INR mode. INR mode is, it's like your top level mode. You're going to get the most slew out of the pod for the least control inputs, especially if you're up close to your target, but it can be fairly inaccurate. So take it with a grain of salt when you use it, and perhaps switch back into scene mode if you want a little ground stabilization and better control. So got some targets out here at the airfield. We'll look at the final locking mode, which is going to be auto mode. Got a target right here, tank. So put the scene over there near him. Now it's perfectly reasonable to make an attack on a target using scene mode. Right there, I've got the scene mode pretty close to him, and he's right over there. You need to take into account, though, that scene mode actually locks the ground behind the ground and not the target itself. So in this case, if I lock him, put that scene pipper right there, that's pretty close. I might get a hit, but depending on our angle of attack, that could very well, because it's locking the ground behind that guy by, oh geez, probably 6 meters or so, I could very well miss. That bomb could go long because the computer doesn't realize there's a target right there. It's just attacking the ground. So if you were going to make an attack using scene mode, what you want to do is put that pipper on the ground just in front of the target based on the direction that you're going to attack from. So right there, I've got that pipper right on the ground, right in front of him on the runway side. We're passing over it right now. So in that case, I would want to make my attack here from the southeast to the northwest. And if I did that based on where that bomb or that scene mode is set, that bomb would splash right in front of him and we get a great kill. So if you use scene mode, just bear that in mind. Scene mode is fine for structures like this barracks here or the terminal here. Just make sure you put the scene center mass and bias it a little bit to the direction that you're going to attack from. So if we were going to attack from, let's see, our current position northwest to southeast, we'd want to bias this a little bit on the back of the building there so we knew it splashed. Alright, we'll take a look at the final locking mode, which is auto mode. Go ahead and get this guy in our brackets. You want to get the scene mode as close to your target as you can. Auto mode can be used for targets, um, vehicles, and or structures. Get the scene mode on him, and then depending on which DDI you're working on, in this case we're working on the right DDI, you want to push sensor control switch right to make sure that it is soy, which it already will be if you're slewing and maneuvering, and then sensor control switch right one more time will lock him up in auto mode. It's indicated by the brackets around the target there, and down here it says auto. This is a very accurate mode that bomb will assuredly hit, or your Maverick or whatever weapon system you're going to use will assuredly hit. To unlock, just again press undesignate, go back to scene mode here, find a target, and you can do the same thing. Now, if you happen to be working on your other DDI, with user's preference, whichever one you like, in order to get the auto mode, it's going to be sensor control switch left. So here, sensor control switch left once, and I am soy, and then left one more time. He's locked up in auto mode. All right. So that completes the different locking techniques for the pod and the symbology and the functionality. The next thing we're going to look at is how to get the pod looking where you want it to look, and there's several different techniques for that. We'll go through them all now. Now that we have some functionality and symbology down, let's talk about getting the pod looking where you want it to look. There's several techniques, and in no particular order, we'll go through them here. Start with the waypoint designate. Click here on the HSI to get the data page. Choose a waypoint you want to edit or create a new waypoint. We'll just edit this one here, waypoint 0. I need something to target. We'll say Frinry here, so that's 207, I'm sorry, 146207. Down here, click UFC, 146,207, and grid. Check, that's populated with the proper coordinates. Now click back to HSI and make sure that that waypoint is selected there. Right now we have waypoint 0, which is correct. You could, if you had multiple waypoints pre-programmed, you could cycle through them. And click waypoint designate here. You'll see there, boom, the pod is now looking directly at that town of Frinry, right where we put the coordinates. That is the first technique. I'll go ahead and click undesignate twice to stow that pod. Now we'll look at the attack radar. We'll kick the attack radar on here. Make sure that we're in air to ground mode and master arm is on. We'll turn towards the airfield. I know there's a few tanks there. They are static tanks, so the radar might have a hard time picking them up until we're very, very close, but we will see. Go ahead and make sure that radar is soy. It is. Pull the airfield out in front of us and let's roll level. Just wait to see if we get any targets. There we go. There's a target there. So I'm going to get the brackets over him. Press TDC to press. Just lost him. Son of a gun. We'll keep looking. Keep looking. There we go. Brackets over him. TDC to press. And one more time. Now we'll go soy here. It gets it fairly close, but it wasn't right on top of him, and I think I kind of fumble-fingered a little bit there. But at any rate, it gets the pod looking more or less where that target is as far as the radar. We'll have a look at the velocity vector slave mode now. This little icon in the center of the screen that resembles an airplane from the back is the velocity vector. If we come down here, we're going to click this OSB right here, VVSLV. That stands for Velocity Vector Slave. I'm going to go ahead and box that, and that will bore sight the targeting pod to that velocity vector. Now we simply place the velocity vector over what we want to have a look at. We'll say the airfield out there, and then press TDC to press with the T-pod as soy, and that creates a target point. That diamond is a target point. There's a tail from the velocity vector that points to the target point. And as you can see here on the pod, you can look and maneuver the data on the T-pod there. You can also move the targeting point around here and see the representation on the HUD. I can move it all the way up there, check that hilltop, etc. Now I can press undesignate. That will undesignate that and remove that T-pod target point, and then we can go and put the velocity vector wherever we like and create a new target point. I'll put it here on the peninsula and press TDC to press. There creates the new target point, and we can now look in there. All right. You'll remain in velocity vector mode until you unbox velocity vector. So I undesignate, unbox, and now we're back. The next mode is really, really interesting and very powerful. We're going to turn our helmet-mounted device on. Then we are going to make sure that our HUD is soy, indicated by that diamond right there. And now you can see the circle with all the lines around it. We can put that anywhere we want and press TDC to press, and that will create a target point there. So I'll look at these rocks. Boom. Press TDC to press. That's created a target point right there, and my T-pod is looking at the rocks. Now, to maneuver the T-pod, I need to quickly switch back to soy, and now I can manipulate the T-pod. Now I'm going to switch my soy back up to the HUD, and I'm going to undesignate, and now I can redesignate another target. Oh, this beach out there. Boom. Now our T-pod is looking at that. Undesignate, and we'll look in the valley right here. There's some bad guys. Designate, and boom. Target point there. Targeting pod is looking there. So as you can see, that is a very, very powerful tool. And I actually just realized that the HUD is still soy, and I can still maneuver the T-pod here, but it doesn't seem nearly as smooth of inputs. Yeah, if I make this soy, it's much smoother. That is the helmet-mounted device method. Next method is mark points. All right, we're going to discuss mark points. Mark points are a powerful tool that we have to quickly create stored locations in the computer that we can then reference back to. We could quickly slew our observation pod or weapons onto those. They can be created in either the SA page or the HSI page. So for now, I'm going to open up the SA page and fly this way here. Now, if you do not have your targeting pod as soy, when you create a mark point, it will be created at the location of the aircraft. So let me get ourselves stable here. And down here on our SA, I'm just going to cycle down to mark point 1. As we're flying above this coastal town, I'm just going to pretend I saw some enemies down there. So I'm going to click mark 1 here. Boom. That creates a mark point on our location. I'm going to say, bad guys at the coastal town. As we fly away from it, you'll see here in a minute we have some symbology on the SA page. I'm going to fly across the bay here, and we're just going to we'll make another mark point over here. We're going to pretend that we see some other bad guys over here. So as we fly a little ways away, you can now see that's M1 in a circle. That denotes mark point 1. So let's see, over here on the beach, we've got an additional set of bad guys that I want to take a look at. And just as we come over the top, I'm going to go ahead and click mark point 2. You can see it's now cycled to mark point 2 on this OSB. So I click that OSB and it's created mark point 2. We don't have any graphical representation of mark point 2 right now. That's because we still have mark point 1 selected. So once I click to mark point 2, now you can see mark point 2 is created right there. I'll go back to mark point 1. Now if we want to get our targeting pod looking at mark point 1, it's very easy. Just click waypoint designate here. And now the T-pod is looking at the first mark point we created. We want to look at number 2, no problem. Click number 2, waypoint designate, and we're now looking at number 2. Let's go back to number 1 and spin the airplane around here. There's another technique you can use using the SA page to get the T-pod looking at mark points, or really any contact for that matter. We just get spun around back towards mark point 1. I'm going to go ahead while we make our turn and make the SA page soy, which it is now. You can see up there, there's mark point 1. Let's range out 10 meters, or to 10. Now, SA page is soy. Since it's soy, I can maneuver these brackets. I'm going to put those brackets right over top of mark point 1 and then press TDC to press. And now we've got more or less near that target point. If I make the T-pod soy, I can zoom in and then we can make some fine control there. But if you can see there, this diamond, I just slewed it off. That's what the targeting pod is looking at. That's our target point. So I've got it co-located on the mark point. That's just a different way that you can use the SA page to point the targeting pod at what you want it pointed at. Now, I don't have any donor aircraft in this mission, but if I did have an AWACS or something, they might be able to provide us some information on ground units, which would show up on the SA page, and with different symbology, and you could slew those brackets onto those ground units and lock them up, or not lock them up, but get the T-pod looked at them and then lock them up that way. So that is the method for dropping mark points on your location. Now let's take a look at how to create mark points using the target pod. So I'm going to target pod soy, I'm going to stow the target pod, and I'm going to switch. Now currently the target pod, creating mark points with the target pod doesn't work exactly correctly with the SA page. That's as of October 3rd, 2021. However, but that will be fixed in the next couple days. I've made the mods aware of it, the mod makers aware of it, and that will be fixed. But in light of that, to demonstrate the next couple, we're just going to switch to the HSI here. These functions work correctly with the HSI. So I'm going to switch up to Mark 3 because that's the next mark we're going to create. I'm going to come over here to the targeting pod. It's soy. Got to get the targeting pod out there looking at something or other. Let's see. Yeah, she's way out there looking at that. Looks like a radar dome out here somewhere, right? Yep. Look at that radar dome. I'm going to push TDC to press. Whoops. TDC to press to create a target point. And there's one created. And now I'm going to press. You can see here on the HSI that shows the target point. I'm going to press mark 3. And that's created now a mark point 3 at that location. I'll zoom out and create something far away from there, here in the desert, right there. Boom, TDC to press to create the target point, mark point 4. Boom, it's created mark point 4. I just need to swipe to the next mark point, and there it is. So now we're looking at mark point 4. I'll switch it back to mark point 3. I'll click waypoint designate, and as you can see now the T-pod is looking back at mark point 3. Go to mark point 4, weapon designate, and now it's looking back at mark point 4. So very easy to create and prioritize different areas of interest. I think you can have up to 9 stored, 9 mark points stored, and you can also overwrite them. Now, all you need to do in order to get mark points stored is get your TGP pointed at them and then click that mark. So one really fast and handy way to do it, you could do it with the velocity vector slave, but you can also do it with helmet mounted sight, which is pretty slick. So I've turned my helmet mounted sight on. I've clicked my sensor control switch up twice to make sure that helmet mounted sight is soy, and I just need to find some targets. So we're going to say this city back here.
Pull up.
Uh-oh. Say this city back here. Click, create a target point there. Okay, that's going to be my first mark point 5. Boom. And, oh, I did that incorrectly. Sorry about that. What you need to do is, I'm going to undesignate all, and let me just start that over again. Got my helmet mounted sight here. We're going to do this city, so I'm going to create a target point right there. Boom, there's the target point. Now come down here, ensure that your T-pod is soy, and then click mark. Boom, that's created a new mark point there. Now I'm going to undesignate twice to stow the pod. I'm going to press sensor control switch up in order to make my helmet mounted sight once again soy. We're going to look at this area here. Targeting pod there. Come back down to the T-pod, make it soy, make my little correction there, and then mark point 7. Boom. Now, undesignate again, sensor control up so that we've got the helmet mounted sight, and this is our final area right there, those rocks. Click those rocks, come back down here, make sure that's soy, the T-pod, and mark 8. Now, as we've flown, we've just created 3 mark points that we can now very easily just cycle the pod to. Let's see, we did 5 or 6, 7, 8, right? So mark point 6, waypoint designate, and you can see it's clicked way out there to that first thing we designated.
Roll
Do a
right.
little climb in here. Mark point 7, waypoint designate. It's at, if I come over here, zoom in, it's at that peninsula that we flew over. I think mark point 8, if I recall correctly, was a bunch of rocks. Mark point 8, waypoint designate, and yeah, rocky peninsula. So that is one fast way to use helmet mounted sight in order to quickly create mark points. You can also use the velocity vector, or really any way that you get your targeting pod looking at something. You can create a mark point and then slew your sensors to it. And last thing, I just want to demonstrate the laser spot search. So I know I have a friendly out here lasing a target at the airfield. Bring the airfield out in front of us there. And down below, I'm going to switch to laser spot track. I know he's broadcasting laser code or PRF 1111. Hit laser spot track. We give that a minute to search out in front of us. And there it goes. It's picked up a target. As you can see, it's created a target point out in front of us. Down here, make the targeting pod soy. You can see we've got a target right there. So it's picked up that laser. We are not broadcasting a laser. That's from an off-board friendly, and we could go ahead and fly in there if we wanted to and drop laser-guided bombs or whatever sort of munition we wanted on him. There's a bomb right there. Drop it in auto. 9 seconds to release. Bars coming down. Hold the pickle. One away. And that should be a dead target here in just a moment. Splash. So the laser spot track, very handy if you have off-board lasing, whether that be a JTAC or buddy lays or what have you. That's going to pretty much do it for the video here. I hope I answered some questions. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, anything, as always, please put those in the comments. I would love to improve the video series and make better pilots out of us all. So thanks for watching, guys. Have a good